The cold December light filtered between Boston's skyscrapers, casting long shadows that danced across the frozen concrete of the financial district. John Cena adjusted his coat as he walked toward the Boston Children's Hospital charity event. His mind split between the speech he had prepared and the dozens of unanswered messages on his phone. His breath mixed with the morning mist as he watched the city come to life. Rushed executives clutching coffee cups, street vendors setting up their stalls, and on the fringes of this urban choreography, the silent figures of the homeless, huddled in their worn-out coats. Then, something familiar caught his eye. A face, partially hidden under a frayed beanie, sent a jolt of recognition through him. Cena slowed his pace, his eyes locked on the figure sitting against the brick wall of an old bank. The man kept his head down, an empty paper cup cradled between gloved hands with fingertips exposed. Marcus? The name slipped from Cena's lips before he could stop it. Marcus Thompson? The man lifted his gaze slowly, his brown eyes clouded with disbelief. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The city noise faded, and Cena was suddenly back in the halls of West Newbury Central High School, back to afternoons on the football field, back to late-night study sessions at the Thompsons' house. "John?" The voice was hoarse, barely a whisper, but unmistakably Marcus's. "No, you weren't supposed to see me like this." Cena felt the weight of 15 years of silence between them. His childhood best friend, the star quarterback with a bright future, now sitting on the sidewalk in Boston, his eyes avoiding direct contact, his hands trembling slightly in the morning cold. "Marcus, Cena started, but the sound of a click cut him off. A passerby had recognized the WWE star and snapped a photo. Within seconds, more phones appeared, documenting the unexpected reunion. Marcus shrank back, trying to disappear. "Go, John. You've got your life. I've got mine." But Cena didn't move. Instead, he sat down beside Marcus on the cold pavement, ignoring the stares and cameras pointed their way. "Remember that time you convinced me to jump off Mr. Peterson's garage roof into the pool?" he asked, his voice low enough for only Marcus to hear. A faint smile flickered across Marcus's face. "You broke your arm, and you stayed with me in the ER all night, even though you knew you'd catch hell from your parents." The silence that followed was thick with shared memories. Around them, the city pulsed forward, but on that sidewalk, two different realities had collided, creating a moment of raw truth that no cell phone camera could truly capture. "Things have changed a lot, John," Marcus finally said, his voice heavy with years of untold stories. "Some things never change," Cena replied, taking off his coat and draping it over Marcus's shoulders despite his friend's silent protests. "You're still my brother." Social media was already exploding with the first images of their encounter, narratives forming, theories brewing. But in that moment, none of it mattered. They were just two kids from West Newbury again, facing the world together, even if the world had become far more complicated than they'd ever imagined. The cold December light filtered through Boston's skyscrapers, casting long shadows that danced across the frozen concrete of the financial district. John Cena adjusted his coat as he made his way to the Boston Children's Hospital charity event. His mind split between the speech he'd prepared and the dozens of unread messages on his phone. His breath mingled with the morning fog as he took in the city stirring awake. Rushed executives clutching coffee cups, street vendors setting up their stands, and on the fringes of this urban choreography, the silent figures of the homeless huddled in their worn-out coats. That's when something familiar caught his eye. A face, partially hidden beneath a tattered beanie, triggered an unsettling sense of recognition. Cena slowed his pace, his gaze locked onto the figure sitting against the old bank's brick wall. The man kept his head down, an empty cardboard cup cradled between gloved hands with fingertips poking through. "Marcus?" The name slipped out before he could stop it. "Marcus Thompson?" Slowly, the man lifted his gaze, brown eyes clouded with disbelief. For a moment, time froze. The city noise faded, and Cena was transported back to the hallways of West Newbury Central High School, to afternoons on the football field, to late-night study sessions at the Thompson house. "John?" The voice was hoarse, barely a whisper, but unmistakably Marcus's. "No, you weren't supposed to see me like this." Cena felt the weight of 15 years of silence between them. His childhood friend, the star quarterback with a bright future ahead, now sat on a Boston sidewalk, his eyes avoiding direct contact, his hands trembling slightly in the morning cold. "Marcus, Cena started, but the sound of a camera shutter cut him off. A passerby had recognized the WWE superstar and snapped a photo. Within seconds, more phones were out, capturing the unexpected reunion. Marcus shrank back, trying to disappear. "Go, John, you have your life, I have mine." But Cena didn't move. Instead, he sat down next to Marcus on the freezing pavement, ignoring the stares and the phones pointed at them. "Remember when you convinced me to jump off Mr. Peterson's garage roof into his pool?" he asked, his voice low enough for only Marcus to hear. A faint smile flickered across Marcus's face. "You broke your arm, and you stayed with me in the ER all night, even though you knew your parents would kill you for it." The silence that followed was thick with shared memories. Around them, the city pulsed on. But on that sidewalk, two different realities collided, creating a raw moment that no camera could truly capture. "Things have changed a lot, John," Marcus finally said, his voice heavy with years of untold stories. "Some things never change," Cena replied, slipping off his coat and draping it over Marcus's shoulders, ignoring his friend's silent protests. "You're still my brother." Social media was already exploding with the first images of the encounter, narratives forming, theories swirling. But in that moment, they were just two kids from West Newbury again, facing the world together, even if the world was now far more complicated than they ever imagined. The buzz on social media grew by the minute. John Cena hero and John finding Marcus were already trending when Cena finally convinced Marcus to follow him to a nearby cafe. The small, unassuming spot on State Street offered a temporary refuge from the cold and the curious stares. Marcus clutched his coffee cup with both hands, as if trying to absorb every bit of warmth. His reflection in the window revealed a 40-year-old man, marked by experiences his eyes seemed reluctant to share. Cena's expensive coat, too out of place for the setting, hung awkwardly over his shoulders. "You still drink your coffee black," Cena noted, breaking the silence before it became permanent. "Some things never change. Some things change too much," Marcus muttered, his fingers drumming nervously against the porcelain. "I watched you rise, you know. Every title, every movie, every charity campaign. It felt like you were living the dream we used to talk about." Cena absorbed the weight of those words. "Marcus, what happened after graduation? You disappeared after enlisting." Marcus's gaze drifted to the window, fixing on a point far beyond the urban horizon. "Iraq happened. 2 tours that changed everything. I came back different, John. PTSD isn't just some acronym on a medical report, it's..." His voice faltered. "It's waking up every night hearing explosions that aren't there anymore. It's losing the ability to tell real threats from imagined ones." A waitress approached to refill their cups, her eyes widening as she recognized Cena. He gave her a polite smile but kept his focus on Marcus. "I tried to get back to normal life. Got a job at my uncle's construction company. Met Sarah in a veterans support group. We had Tommy." Marcus's voice broke as he swallowed hard. "The car accident took them both 3 years ago. After that, every day became a battle against memories I can't handle and a silence I can't fill." The coffee between them cooled, a silent witness to a story unfolding in layers of pain and loss. Cena felt the weight of every word unspoken, of every moment he could have been there but wasn't. "Why didn't you reach out?" Marcus let out a bitter laugh. "And say what?" "Hey John, remember me? Your friend who became a statistic? You built something incredible? Man, I didn't want to be the stain on your perfect picture." At that moment, Cena's phone buzzed insistently. His agent, worried about the charity event that had already started. The reality of his obligations threatened to intrude on this fragile reconnection. "You have to go," Marcus said, recognizing the look on his friend's face. "It's okay, John. Some stories don't have happy endings." "No," Cena said firmly, silencing his phone. "I'm not disappearing again. You're more important than any event." Marcus looked at him with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "The world is watching. John, your actions have consequences now." "Exactly why we need to do this right." Cena leaned in. "Not for the cameras, not for the media, but because of who we are. Because 15 years ago, you sat with me in that ER all night, and now it's my turn to sit with you." Silent tears slipped down Marcus's face as he struggled to hold himself together. Outside, a small crowd had already gathered, their phones pressed against the cafe window, capturing fragments of a moment that would soon be dissected in thousands of posts and comments. But inside that cafe, protected by a temporary bubble of authenticity, 2 men began rebuilding a bridge over the abyss of lost years, knowing that every word, every gesture, every moment of shared vulnerability was another brick in that reconstruction. The Boston Children's Hospital buzzed with speculation as John Cena finally arrived, 3 hours late, with Marcus by his side. The sterile hallways echoed with whispers and the clicks of cell phone cameras, while Cena's PR team scrambled frantically to control the narrative that was already spreading like wildfire. "Mr. Cena, we need to discuss how to manage this situation," insisted David, his lead publicist, trying to form a barrier between the two friends and the curious onlookers. "Social media is on fire, and 3 news networks have already requested exclusive interviews." Marcus visibly shrank under the weight of the attention. His eyes, so used to the invisibility of the streets, now faced the relentless scrutiny of modern fame. Cena's borrowed coat looked even more out of place under the hospital's fluorescent lights. "There's no situation to manage, David," Cena replied, his voice carrying the calm professionalism honed by years in the entertainment industry. "This is Marcus Thompson, my childhood friend, and he's attending the event with me." The tension in the air was palpable. Hospital staff, young patients, and their parents all watched the scene unfold, their expressions a mix of curiosity and compassion. A small girl in a wheelchair, no older than 7, stared at Marcus, not with judgment, but with the pure curiosity only childhood allows. "John," Marcus murmured, "maybe I should go. This is your world, not mine." Before Cena could respond, the girl in the wheelchair rolled closer, guided by her mother. "Are you John Cena's friend?" she asked, her eyes shining with genuine interest. Marcus hesitated, his hands trembling slightly. Yeah, we've been friends since we were kids." "Then you must be really strong too." The innocence of her statement cut through the layers of social tension and adult expectations. For the first time in a long while, a genuine smile lit up Marcus's face. "Actually," he said, kneeling to her eye level, "John was always the strong one. I was more the brains of the operation." "Was?" Cena cut in, his voice laced with nostalgia. "Who helped me pass senior year chemistry? Who planned every play that got us to the state championship?" The easy flow of their conversation started to shift the atmosphere. Phones were still recording, but now they were capturing something different, not a calculated act of charity, but a glimpse of authentic humanity. David, sensing the shift in dynamic, quickly adjusted his approach. "Mr. Thompson, we can arrange for something more comfortable for you to wear during the event, if you'd like." "The coat stays," Cena declared, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Some things matter more than appearances." The next few hours blurred together in a rush of activity. At first, Marcus remained reserved, but before long, he found himself sharing stories with the children. Stories about the John Cena they didn't know. The awkward teenager afraid of public speaking. The loyal friend who always stood up for the underdog. The dreamer who turned determination into reality. On social media, the narrative started to shift. The hashtags evolved from mere sensational curiosity into something deeper. Among the trending topics, real friendship and second chances began to gain momentum. By late afternoon, when the cameras had finally lowered and the buzz had settled, Marcus and Cena found a moment of quiet in an empty hospital room. The weight of the day showed on their faces, but there was something else too, a spark of possibility. "They're going to want to know more," Marcus said, breaking the silence. "Your life is public now. Every move is analyzed, every decision questioned. Let them question it," Cena replied, his voice steady. "Some stories need to be told, Marcus, not for the spectacle, but for the truth they carry." NBC's Boston headquarters gleamed like a hive of glass and steel under the gray afternoon sky. On the 15th floor, inside a waiting room decorated with carefully curated elegance, Marcus nervously adjusted the collar of his new shirt, a relentless gift from John, just like the rest of the outfit he was wearing. "You don't have to do this," Cena said for the 3rd time in the last hour, studying his friend with concern. "We can handle the media another way." The NBC Today interview had been meticulously negotiated. Exclusive, live, no pre-approved questions. A decision that had kept Cena's PR team awake for nights. "Yes, I do," Marcus replied, his eyes fixed on the city beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Not for anyone else, but for myself. 15 years in the shadows. It's time to face the light." A young producer entered the room, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "5 minutes, gentlemen. Mr. Thompson, would you like a quick touch-up?" Marcus nodded mechanically, letting himself be guided to the nearest chair. In the mirror, he watched the surreal transformation, from a man of the streets to someone who could blend into corporate America. The irony wasn't lost on him. "Remember debate club?" Marcus asked as the makeup artist dusted powder over his face. "How you always froze in the first 30 seconds?" Cena smiled, the memory bringing a flicker of amusement to his eyes. "And you always nudged me under the table. Our secret signal to breathe. Still works," Marcus said, lightly nudging Cena's arm. The gesture, so familiar yet so distant in time, carried the weight of all the unspoken words between them. The studio lights were even harsher than those in the waiting room. Sarah Matthews, the host, was already in position, her professional smile masking the hunger for a story that promised sky-high ratings. In 3-2, the director signaled the silent one. "America, an extraordinary story found its way to us this week," Sarah began, her voice perfectly modulated to strike just the right balance of compassion and curiosity. John Cena, WWE superstar and Hollywood actor, reunited with his childhood friend Marcus Thompson, who had been living on the streets of Boston. Today, they're here to share their story of friendship, loss, and redemption. Marcus felt the weight of millions of unseen eyes through the cameras. His military training kicked in instinctively. Straight back, controlled breathing, mind locked on the mission. "Marcus," Sarah leaned in slightly, "many people are wondering, how does someone so close to a star like John Cena end up on the streets?" The studio fell into absolute silence. Beside him, Cena visibly tensed, but Marcus remained calm. "You know, Sarah," he began, his voice steady, "that question comes with an interesting assumption, as if being close to success was some kind of shield against trauma, loss, or the battles we all face. But the truth is, depression doesn't care who you know. PTSD doesn't negotiate. The pain of loss doesn't discriminate between the famous and the forgotten." Sarah blinked, clearly not expecting such an articulate and direct response. But Marcus wasn't done. "I'm not here to be some modern fairy tale or a cautionary lesson. I'm here because after years of hiding from the truth, I realized that my story, our story, might mean something bigger than just us." The impact of the interview was immediate and overwhelming. In the hours that followed, Marcus' story dominated social media, accompanied by a flood of testimonials from veterans and others facing similar battles. Marcus and John's story had struck a raw nerve in the national consciousness. In the hotel room Cena had arranged for him, Marcus stared out at the city from the 20th floor window. The view of Boston at night felt surreal, an ocean of lights that just days ago he had only seen from below, from the cold sidewalks that had been his home. "Your phone won't stop buzzing," Cena said, walking into the room with 2 cups of coffee. Since the interview, veteran organizations, rehabilitation programs, and even politicians had been trying to reach Marcus. "Funny," Marcus said, accepting the cup. "I spent so long trying to be invisible. And now you have a platform," Cena finished, settling into the chair nearby. "The question is, what do you want to do with it?" The silence that followed was filled with the soft hum of the air conditioner and the distant sounds of the city. Marcus turned the coffee cup in his hands, a gesture that reminded Cena of their school days, when Marcus would do the same before speaking at a debate. "You know what scares me the most, John," Marcus finally said. "It's not the attention, not the cameras. It's hope. After so long in the dark, it feels like a muscle waking up after years of atrophy. It hurts." At that moment, Marcus's phone buzzed again. A message from the Boston Veterans Center. They wanted him to speak to a group of former soldiers about his experience, not as a sudden celebrity, but as someone who truly understood their struggles. "Maybe," Marcus continued, his voice growing steadier, "it's time to turn this pain into something bigger than myself. Not some Hollywood redemption arc, but a reminder that our scars don't define us." Cena saw it then. A subtle shift in Marcus. A flicker of the strategist he once knew, stepping out of the shadows of trauma. "What are you thinking?" "A foundation," Marcus said, turning to face his friend. "Not just for veterans, but for anyone fighting their own battles. No cameras, no spotlights, just people helping people." A genuine smile spread across Cena's face. "Now that sounds like the Marcus I remember." The rest of the night was spent discussing plans and possibilities. Over cups of coffee and shared memories, 2 friends weren't just redrawing their own futures. They were shaping something that could change the lives of others facing similar struggles. By morning, as the first rays of sunlight painted Boston's skyline, Marcus stood on the hotel balcony. His reflection in the glass no longer showed a broken man, but someone rediscovering his own worth. "Hey, John," he called out, noticing his friend waking up. "Remember that promise we made senior year? About changing the world? Cena smiled, stepping onto the balcony beside him. How could I forget? You said I'd change the world in the ring, and you... In the trenches, Marcus finished. I guess we both kept that promise, just not in the way we expected. The sun rose higher over Boston, illuminating a city that, for Marcus, no longer felt like a battlefield, but a land of possibility. Cena's coat, which just days ago symbolized the gap between their realities, now rested neatly folded over a chair, a reminder that sometimes we need to borrow strength from others to find our own. So, Cena asked, ready to get started? Marcus nodded, his eyes locked on the horizon. I always was. I just needed to remember that. Below them, the city was waking up. Somewhere out there, stories like Marcus's were waiting to be heard. And now, finally, someone was ready to listen.